folks. Thank you so much for joining us early today. Please take some time to familiarize yourselves with the controls of this live webinar. That includes subtitles in a number of languages that you can enable by clicking the underneath the video. There is a gear. I'm looking for the word gear. It's still early in the morning. Click the gear to enable one of the languages, and you can also see other options there as well. If you have friends who may be calling in, you are certainly welcome to let them know what the call-in number is, and that's on your screen right now. You'll hear some music and also see a short video. Thanks again.
My sincere gratitude to you, our audience, our family, and more than 80 guests that came through our virtual studio. Thank you again. So what can you expect from Age-Friendly Seattle in 2021? Well, you can expect stories of health, tech, and resilience to continue being close to home, and for the coffee hours to stay civic and virtual. And maybe, just maybe, by the end of the year, we'll be able to actually pour you a cup of coffee and break bread with you in person. But regardless of location, our events will take place twice a month instead of the weekly cadence you may be used to in 2020. And they will last a full hour now. A big shout out to the Seattle Public Library, who has signed on to sponsor both programs in 2021. A reminder that unlike Close to Home, which feature guests from community organizations, academia, the coffee hours have a very specific mission of connecting community elders with government decision makers. And to join these interactive webinars in 2021, you would still navigate to our virtual event hub, bit.ly/age-friendly-live. No spaces, but each word is capitalized. Visit there anytime to find program descriptions and a playlist with all the previous episodes, including special events, with subtitles in 7 languages, which do change from program to program. And you and your friends will still have the option to join from any phone by calling 206-686-8357 and entering the conference ID, which is 224-689-164. I invite you to come back again in 2021. And right now, join our virtual community by subscribing to our channel. It's called Aging King County on YouTube.
Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to another Age-Friendly Live show. My name is Lenny Orlov. I'm your host this morning. And we're streaming live from the virtual studio in my Seattle apartment. Being here in Seattle, we would like to ask everyone to please join us in a land acknowledgement. At Seattle Human Services, we acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. Please visit duwamishtribe.org to learn more about the Duwamish, people of the inside, who are still here. There you can learn how to get involved about different events and different happenings of the tribe. Please, we hope that you will check it out. Today, though, we would like to welcome you to the age-friendly Seattle Civic Coffee Hour with Mariko Lockhart, and Mike Chin is also joining us as a special guest. They're both from Seattle Office for Civil Rights. They'll talk about the city's commitment to race and social justice and different processes that the office uses for complaint investigation and more. First, I wanted to check in a little bit about what Age Friendly is, if this is your first time joining us possibly. Age Friendly is a worldwide movement, and it's this idea that people can get together and make municipalities, cities, states, countries, this world, a better place to grow up and grow old. And worldwide, it's administered by the World Health Organization, and here in the United States, AARP, and specifically in Washington State, it's AARP Washington that kind of oversees different action plans that cities and other municipalities put together. And we do have an action plan that actually runs through the end of this year. And this year, we are concentrating, we are focusing on connection, inclusion, and access, those kind of broad areas to finish out our action plan. And you'll see on the slide that we do have, again, the phone number that folks can use if they don't have access to the internet. I see some of you are on the line today, so thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. And additionally, if you are online, there is a certain level of language access that's available where there are subtitles that you can turn on by clicking that gear underneath the video, and those are available in Arabic, Chinese, English, Korean, Russian, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And we can switch those out. There's a list of about 50 that we choose from, but these are the ones that have been requested in the past when these events were still in person. And Age Friendly Seattle Civic Coffee Hour has a history that goes back over a decade, and it's only become virtual recently, last year in April. By the way, Age Friendly Seattle Civic Coffee Hour is not the only program that we produce, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Today on the Coffee Hour, regardless of how you're joining us, we will have a couple of folks in the virtual studio working with us, Michael Taylor-Judd and Justin England. They are both with the Human Services Department. They will collect your questions that you put into the live Q&A. So if you're watching this live, go ahead and put in those questions now, even if you're wondering about the work of even Human Services Department, but mainly the Office for Civil Rights. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to click the subscribe button and enable notifications to know as soon as we upload this particular event or others that we produce. And feel free to leave a comment, and we'll certainly notify our presenters after the fact and request that they respond. So on the live show, the Q&A questions will be received and then published, and then eventually one of the moderators will read it out loud to one of the presenters, who will then respond on air. If you're joining us by phone, we will open up the lines, and actually right after the presentations are done, we'll go to the phones. And that's a good cue for those of you online to go ahead and start typing your questions and comments. And a reminder to those of you on the phone to go ahead and whenever we give signal that the lines are open, you still may need to press *6 to unmute yourself if you had previously muted yourself that way. Lastly, we welcome all questions, of course, during these presentations, but if a question goes beyond what is being presented, we would like to invite you to call Community Living Connections. And that number is 1-844-348-5464. You can call them with any question related to aging or disability. And they will help connect you with resources and services such as food and meals that are available in a network of organizations in your community, which of course each of them are at a different level of reopen, but the Community Living Connections advocate will certainly help navigate that today. They don't necessarily handle questions about vaccinations. We will cover that a little bit later on the show. I'll provide those phone numbers and URLs for you. So I mentioned that this coffee hour has a sister program, and it's called Close to Home, Stories of Health, Tech, and Resilience. And I want to invite you to come back in 2 weeks on March 4th and to help us start our celebration of Women's History Month. We will be welcoming, I'm very excited to say, Noura Adam, who is the executive director of Immigrant Women's Community Center. It's a brand new nonprofit organization. And we've worked with Noura for a number of years. When these events were in person, I'm talking about the coffee hours, we would have various languages, sometimes up to 4 languages at a time, requested for interpretation. And Noura's agency, Adams Interpreting Services, had provided interpreters for us every single time. So thank you, Noura, for agreeing to come on the show in a couple of weeks. And you can find it in the exact same place as you did today, which is either by calling the phone number, which is 206-686-8357, and entering the conference ID 224-689-164. Or you can find us obviously online at bit.ly/age-friendly-live. Age-friendly live is all one word, and each word, though age, friendly, and live, are capitalized. So please join us next time. And as you can see from the branding on the slide, both the coffee hour and Close to Home are supported by the Seattle Public Library. When we were in person, we were meeting at the Seattle Public Library Central Branch, but now we're meeting here, wherever you are. So we hope that you will, make your own coffee today. But whenever we go back in person and we come back to the library, you will then enjoy beverages on us and some snacks as well, maybe donuts or something healthier. So the library has been our partner since 2020, and even before going virtual, we had this plan for community broadcasts for the coffee hour. So we certainly do appreciate the library's support over the years, and I'm going to welcome for a brief update about the library's road to reopening our agent in charge of age friendliness, older adults program manager, Nancy Sloat. Nancy, thank you so much for being here again. Please remember to unmute your microphone and you'll be live on the coffee hour.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy that we can partner with Age Friendly and Seattle Human Services to offer these programs. I've said before that I actually learned so much about city government and also community organizations that it's great for me personally also. And I love talking about the library. I love being a librarian, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about some of the core services that we have going now, and some of the new things that have come online. So I know everybody wants to get back into the branches, probably myself more than anybody. But until then, we do have curbside pickup. We have a bunch of branches, about 13, 14 branches now, where you can place a hold and then you get a notice and then you come pick up your materials. And we're adding new branches all the time. Last week we added Northgate and Magnolia. This week I think we're just about to offer the Queen Anne branch. And now at a lot of these branches, there's 5-day-a-week pickup from Tuesday through Saturday. So everybody just go to the website at spl.org/curbside to find out where the branches are and the particular hours and the days. So another thing that you can get, and this is pretty new too, you can get printing done at the curbside branches. And there's a way to send your print job from your computer or your phone or your tablet wirelessly to the library. And then when you go to a curbside place, they can print the job for you. So the first time you do that, it's a little complicated, but then you'll get the hang of it. And there are instructions on the website. And also you can, in fact, call our quick information, call our staff, and they can walk you through it. So the other great thing is you can get 10 free black and white copies a day to pick up. So that's a great service that we just started offering. So can I have the next slide? So I just referred to the asking us questions. And of course, besides our books and our collections and our DVDs and our music, we answer thousands of questions a month. Our phone line is called Quick Information, and I'll read that number, 206-386-4636. And the Quick staff, they're amazing. I think they can answer almost anything. Sometimes I even have to call them because I can't find something on the website. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but they're great, and they truly know their way around the system, and they do a lot of help with our digital resources and downloading books and things like that. But if you prefer to email a librarian or to go on to live chat, that's definitely another option too. Could I have the next slide? All of our services are free with a library card, and we do have ways of getting a card to you or getting you a card number, even though the branches are closed. So call our Quick Information and they can give you instructions on how to do that. Next slide. So I just wanted to tell you very briefly about some of the services that you might not know about. So first of all, we have hotspots that we circulate. We have about 450 hotspots. You can check them out, just like you can check out a book or a DVD. You can keep them for 3 weeks. They're very, very popular, so there is a wait time on them. But it's fabulous for people who don't have access to the internet. And I've used them too at times when I've been outside at an event. So next slide, please. Yes, it's tax form time, and libraries have always been great about having some of the basic tax forms. So at all of the curbside locations, we have the 1040 forms and the instructions and the 1040 senior SR forms. And at the central library, we have more forms available, like 1099s, things like that. We also have information about United Way and AARP, which offer free tax return help. And they can't do complicated returns, but they can do a lot of things. And if you need that assistance and you're interested, either call Quick Information or email the library and we can get you that information. Lenny, could I have the next slide? And this is a service that we've just brought back. It's called the Museum Passes. And with a library card, you can get a free pass into one of these 4 museums. sometimes we only have one pass per day for each of the museums. So you have to be kind of right on the web to be able to get a free pass. But you basically sign up, you print the pass, and again, you could go to the library and the curbside location and get and have them print the pass. It's usually good for 1 or 2 adults and a couple of kids, so great for grandkids if you want to go to a museum. The appointments are available out 30 days. So there's all kinds of instructions on the library website about how to get the museum passes. But I have to tell you that the Seattle Aquarium is one of my favorite places to go. I'm so happy that the museums are able to open now. Could I have the next slide? And we've just launched a new digital collection called the Black History and Culture Collection. And it consists of lots of really cool pamphlets and newsletters and flyers that have been collected at the Douglas Truth Library for many, many years, collected with the community and with the librarians at the Douglas Truth branch. The Douglas Truth branch has a very large collection of over 10,000 books and films and music related to Black history and culture in the Puget Sound area. And included in that collection is this, we call it ephemera in the library. It's just, it's not letters, but it's the kind of pamphlets and things like that, which really are the heart of a lot of community events. So for example, there's the flyer for the first Juneteenth celebration at Seattle Center in 1980. So it's really fun to look at these online. And right now you can find a link to this right on the front of the library's webpage, which is spl.org. And could I have the next slide? And my last thing that I just wanted to mention is that on February 25th, we're doing a program with the authors of this book called The Elderwise Way. Elderwise is a program in North Seattle that works with people with memory loss and really focuses on sort of a person-centered approach to working with folks rather than focusing on the disease itself. So it's a wonderfully humane book, and we'll be talking with the authors on February 25th. You do need to register through the library's website to do that. And then my final slide is just to let you know, I don't know if it's changed yet to the next slide, but these are our pages for older adults on the library's website. It's www.spl.org/nextchapter. We have all kinds of resources listed and information about our programs and book lists, all kinds of resources about supporting older adults. So I think that's about it. And again, if you have any questions or suggestions for me, please, you're welcome to get a hold of me, or if you lose this email or my name, you can call Quick Information and they can get your information to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. We appreciate the update as always. And as always, it sounds like each couple of weeks, the library is doing more and more during this pandemic as the state begins to reopen, and as hopefully more and more of us are becoming eligible and are actually getting the COVID-19 vaccine. That is actually something I'd like to talk about very briefly before going on to our main event, which is the Seattle Office for Civil Rights. It's this resource. It's a statewide resource, and it's coronavirus.wa.gov. And it has advice on safer gatherings and safer celebrations, and things like what what businesses can do and what are safe ways for reopening in our communities. It is available in over 30 languages, which is pretty nice. If you're watching us online, you can see quite a bit of a selection. I'm sorry, it's kind of small on the screen here. And these are not just, quick translations in Google Translate. These are actual websites translated by professional translators. So it's good and important information, and there's a number of documents and printouts. And I know that Seattle Office for Civil Rights also has documents in various languages. I've checked out their PDFs in Russian, which is really awesome. So back to this resource here. This is where you would go to find out if you're in the phase that's eligible for a vaccine, and if you are, then there's a vaccine location finder as well. It's the two buttons at the top of the website, the yellow and the green buttons. Let's say though, we know everybody's not online, or the page is not loading for you, but you qualify because of age or living in a multi-generational household, for example. In that case, there is this phone number that you can call. It's the State of Washington COVID-19 Assistance Hotline. It was set up even before vaccinations for folks to have to ask any questions about reopening or anything about COVID. And so the number is 1-800-525-0127, and it's open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's actually also open on Saturdays and Sundays and observed state holidays. Those hours are different. They're 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If that number is busy and you can't get through, they have added an additional number, and that's 1-888-856-5816. Again, that's 888-856-5816. One other number to tell you about is the Washington Listens line. This is not a, let's learn about what COVID is. This is more of a support line, for folks who are experiencing stress related to the coronavirus pandemic, any type of, conversation you want to have with a person on the other line. You can call Washington Listens at 1-833-681-0211. Again, 833-681-0211. They have slightly different hours than the state assistance hotline. The Washington Listens is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and on weekends from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So hopefully you are staying safe out there and using these resources to find out about your eligibility. We mentioned the Community Living Connections number, and it should be showing up in your live Q&A. It'll also be available in the description on YouTube. They're not necessarily equipped to handle these calls, but this hotline is. All right, so at this stage, I would like to move us along to our main event, which is the Civic Coffee Hour with the Office for Civil Rights. First, we'll hear from Mariko Lockhart, director of this office, which enforces local and federal civil rights laws. It also coordinates the city's Race and Social Justice Initiative that I mentioned earlier, and supports legislation and policy development. And following, we'll hear from Mike Chin. He is the Civil Rights Enforcement Manager and leads SOCR's enforcement team, which includes an investigation unit, a testing program, and an emerging set of restorative practices. Looking forward to learning about all of those. But in the meantime, Mariko, thank you so much for being here on the Coffee Hour. Please remember to unmute your microphone. You're now live on the Civic Coffee Hour.
Hi, Lenny. Thank you so much for inviting us to be on the Civic Coffee Hour, and hello, everyone. As Lenny mentioned, I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Chin, our Civil Rights Enforcement Manager, and so you'll hear from both of us. And then after our presentation, we would welcome any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So for those of you on the phone, I'm going to go ahead and read this slide. It is our vision and mission for this Seattle Office for Civil Rights. Our vision is a city of liberated people where communities historically impacted by racism, oppression, and colonization hold power and thrive. And to reach that vision, the mission of our office is to end structural racism and discrimination through accountable community relationships and anti-racist organizing, policy development, and civil rights enforcement. Next slide. So in order to achieve that mission, Mike and I will be talking about the actual functions of our office and what we do in support of that vision and mission. So we'll be talking about our Race and Social Justice Initiative, the policy support and development functions of our office. We also support 4 commissions. The City of Seattle has over 100 boards and commissions. 4 of those are supported by our office, and they include the Seattle Women's Commission, the Seattle Human Rights Commission, the Seattle LGBTQ Commission, and the Seattle Disability Commission. And then Mike will be able to talk to you in much more detail about our civil rights enforcement. Next slide. So the Race and Social Justice Initiative is, it was established in 2004 and was the first governmental effort of its kind aimed at ending institutional racism. As the first bullet there says, we are working to strengthen internal anti-racist, the internal anti-racist network through leadership development and support. And we do that by providing leadership, technical assistance, coaching, training to leaders at all levels of the organization and city employees throughout the city government, as well as supporting our change teams. And change teams are groups organized in every department that are employees who have volunteered to take on the work of advancing racial equity in their departments and in their lines of business. And we support them through guidance, trainings, and convening. The second bullet is increased knowledge and understanding of racism through citywide racial justice trainings. Among the very first efforts that we undertook when we established the Race and Social Justice Initiative was to provide training because we want to establish a base level throughout the city, throughout city government, of the history of racism in our city and in our country, and to understand the role that the city can play in ending those historic systems of oppression. And then another important function of our initiative is assessing change in our progress toward our mission through data analysis and evaluation. Some of the ways that we have been tracking that kind of change is through a series of surveys. We have conducted surveys of our city employees on a biannual basis, and we've also done some surveying of our community. As we move forward, we are looking at other forms of gathering information and checking our progress and trying to ensure that we are actually addressing the concerns that get raised for us through the many ways that we hear from community. Next slide, please. So we also have a division that is focused on policy development and that also oversees the commission's support. In that division, we provide research and analysis to our elected officials. That includes both the mayor and our city council members to support policy and legislation development. And the most important role that we play there is uplifting and raising up the voices of community members who experience racism and oppression in its many forms, and ensuring that those voices and those perspectives are taken into account as policy is developed and new legislation is developed as well. And then we support the 4 advisory commissions that I mentioned before. These are commissions that are really important bridges to specific communities and help the city policymakers and decision makers have insight into the issues and concerns of those communities, and also can seek their advice and counsel as policies and programs and initiatives are undertaken. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike Chin, to talk about our civil rights enforcement.
Great. Thank you, Mariko. And thank you for inviting us to the Age-Friendly Seattle. My name is Mike Chin. My pronouns is he, him, his, and my race is Asian American. And today I'm going to do a brief overview of the Civil Rights Enforcement Division work in the Seattle Office for Civil Rights. So our mission is to promote equality and advance equity by enforcing Seattle civil rights laws that protect people from all forms of discrimination, and developing partnerships by engaging in inclusive outreach and public engagement. Our team is made up of experienced staff who are committed to civil rights, racial equity, and social justice. As one of the most progressive civil rights agencies, which I'm part of, the enforcement team uses both strategies, responsive and proactive strategies, to protect civil rights for every single person that lives in Seattle, works in Seattle, or does business here in Seattle. The Civil Rights Enforcement Division uses both responsive and strategic enforcement to ensure compliance with Seattle's fair housing laws, which also include fair housing, fair employment, public places, and contracting. Our team is made up of an enforcement manager, a civil rights supervisor, 5 civil rights investigator analysts, a strategic advisor, our testing program manager, mediator, and support staff, which includes our paralegal and our front desk coordinator. There are 4 areas in how we do enforcement. We do it proactively through our trainings, such as this, where we educate the public around what these laws protect and the rights that individuals have in housing, employment, and public places. We also do community engagement, which is to answer questions from the public around what these laws are about and how we can assist people to ensure that their civil rights are being protected in Seattle. We also have a testing program which involves community testers who go out and look for forms of discrimination that folks may be experiencing in housing and also employment. And part of our responsive enforcement looks like when an individual has experienced discrimination, we will open up an investigation and gather the information necessary to determine whether there has been a violation of the law. Next slide, please. So there are really 4 areas in which we do enforcement. And these 4 areas are in employment. So anytime an individual is working in Seattle, we provide protections in employment, housing, public places, and contracting. We also have federal laws that we also enforce, which includes Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and Title VI, which requires the city to comply with federal non-discrimination laws. There are some additional specific laws that afford Seattle residents who live in Seattle additional laws, additional protections, such as the Fair Chance Housing and First in Time protections. Both of these laws are fairly new. Fair Chance Housing prohibits landlords from screening or inquiring about individuals who may have a criminal history. These are barriers, especially to BIPOC communities who are looking for housing in Seattle. And First in Time really mitigates the effects of racial bias for folks who are applying for housing. There are also three additional laws that are in public accommodations, which includes the all-gender restroom ordinance, the ban on conversion therapy to minors, which there is also a state law that also has the additional protections across the state of Washington. There's also the closed captioning law that requires bars, restaurants, stores to have closed captioning on the bottom of television screens. So these are the main areas of how we do our what the laws are protected here in Seattle. Next slide, please. As a resident or working in Seattle or doing business in Seattle, Seattle has the most protected classes and leads the country with over 20 protected classes in employment, public accommodations, housing, and fair contracting. And protected classes are attributes or associations that every single person has. In many cases, some folks may have one or more protected classes. These protected classes include age. They also include alternative sources of income, ancestry, breastfeeding protections, color, creed, disability, gender identity, genetic information, marital status, national origin, parental and familial status, political ideology, race, religion, having a housing choice voucher or otherwise known as Section 8, sex, sexual orientation, subsidies, and subsidies meaning housing subsidies, use of a service animal, and veteran and military status. You can tell from this chart that some protected classes are available in employment and public accommodation, housing, and in contracting. And for more information about these protected classes, please, we do encourage you to contact our office for more information about what these definitions and what these protections include. Next slide, please. So if you believe you have been experienced discrimination, here's a step-by-step guide on how we investigate these complaints. So the first step and the most important step is to contact us. Our staff will schedule some time to meet with you by phone or even scheduling some time by email and discuss what has been your experience in housing, employment, or public places. We will also provide you several options of how to resolve these complaints, which Lenny had discussed a little bit earlier, what we call early resolution options. If these issues are unable to be resolved at that early stage between you or the employer or housing provider or a business owner, we will then proceed with filing a charge and open up an investigation to look into the matter of whether there has been a violation of one of the laws that I had discussed in a previous slide. During an investigation, we will ask for information from you as well as from the owner of the business or housing provider or employer, and we will do an analysis to see whether or not there has been a violation. If there has been a violation of one of these laws, we will refer this case to the city attorney's office to file with the hearing examiner on your behalf. Next slide, please. And here's our contact information for any of the information that you may have some questions about, information that Mariko has shared around our policy work and commissions or race and social justice. Our mainline telephone number is 206-684-4500. Our staff is more than happy to answer any questions you might have from the public around the laws that we have here in Seattle, our policy work, our RSGI work, or our commission work. And if you work with or own a business and need technical assistance about civil rights laws, we also provide you technical assistance. And you can contact us through our email, discriminationquestions@seattle.gov. And if you have just general questions or want to reach out to us by email, please contact us through discrimination@seattle.gov. Thank you for your time, and I'll hand it back to Lenny.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. We do appreciate this really thorough overview and so many resources, and thank you, Mariko, as well for giving us an opportunity to learn what the city does to make sure that, or to at least strive to be a just city. I would like to, we have plenty of time for questions here. We have a couple of people on the phone that I'm going to go to, but I just want to remind folks, I mentioned earlier that if you're watching this on YouTube, you are also welcome to ask questions and provide feedback. But if you're watching it live and you haven't already subscribed to our channel, this is the link right here, and you're more than welcome to join the age-friendly movement and help the city become a better place to grow up and grow old. And as a side benefit, you'll know as soon as we upload this and other programs that we conduct. So with that said, and when we go to YouTube, we are going to put music during this time, but right now we're going to the phone lines, and we're going to unmute the lines completely, and then we'll see what folks have to say. All right, at this time, you are live on the Civic Coffee Hour. What is your question or comment? I can hear some typing there, so sounds like you are connected. All right, well, we may have time to come back to the phones again. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone. We do really do appreciate that. And we're gonna go ahead and close the lines one more time here. All right, so at this stage, I'm going to switch it over to one of our moderators. Let's see, last time we had both Justin and Michael on, but I think we started off with Justin. So let's go to Michael first. Michael, what questions do we have in our online Q&A? And please remember to unmute your microphone.
Thank you for the reminder. Good morning, everybody. We had a great comment that came in. Someone was very happy to learn about Seattle Public Library programs and services. But other than that, I don't believe there are any questions in the queue right now for the folks from Office of Civil Rights. So if people have questions, get those in.
Great. Thank you for checking that, Michael. I actually would like to offer for folks to perhaps, if they have questions about the library, I believe Nancy is still here with us, and we would certainly welcome her feedback. If she is, doesn't look like her camera is on, but she is still in the meeting. All right. So in that case, I do have a question. It was kind of interesting to hear that bars are required to have closed captioning. That's not something that I was aware of. I guess that shows how often I make it out to bars. Well, not even this past year, just in general. And I guess we've met that requirement with this webinar here, because the captions are available, and they're actually available in several languages. So in that vein, in terms of sort of the language access aspect of this, I'm wondering what language support does the Office for Civil Rights have? I mentioned earlier that there are fact sheets. Like I think it's really crucial for different languages to offer information about what civil rights enforcement is like. And I really appreciated seeing the language that I speak at home. Can you speak a little bit more about sort of your approach to language access? And who would like to take that?
I'm happy to start the question, because I think there's a couple of questions that you brought up, Lenny, which I really appreciate. The first thing is around closed captioning. And so closed captioning is a new law, and that was passed, I believe, about a year and a half ago, definitely the pre-COVID period of time. Enforcement has been a little bit different because, as you know, during the COVID period of time, we've had a lot of public establishments like bars, hotels, and restaurants have been closed. But what this law does require, and we are, I believe, the second jurisdiction after Portland to have a similar law like this. It requires that if there is any sort of television monitor that is in a bar, so for example, you go into a bar and they're showing the Seahawks playing or the Sounders playing, it requires the business owner to have closed captioning available on the screen so that everyone has equal access. Everyone can have access to seeing what is being narrated in that program. And that also includes, and when we talk about public spaces, we're also talking about anything that's open to the public. So we're talking about bars, restaurants, hotel lounges, anything that has, and even stores. So even if you were to go into a store that is selling televisions, those stores should have closed captioning, if on, available for their customers to be able to see what is being projected or what's being shared audio. So that is a requirement. In terms of, so that's what closed captioning law is. Your second question around language access, around like, okay, what about having it in multiple languages like Spanish or Korean or Russian or other languages? That is something that we as the City of Seattle are required to provide access on our websites and any public facing information to the public, because as a public service, as well as our Title VI requirement under the federal laws, does require that we have what is called language access. And the Office of Immigrant Refugee Affairs, OIRA, is one of our point of contacts who does a tremendous, a terrific job in making sure that our city services are provided in multiple languages. And so there are some requirements like that. In the public spaces, for example, a bar or privately owned bar or restaurant and things like that, that isn't necessarily a requirement. What we would encourage our businesses to provide language access, either in written form or verbally, to all their customers, because we know that the more inclusive community that we have, the more we invite folks into Seattle to be able to spend time in Seattle. And language is such a critical piece when we're talking about language access. I also want to speak to some of the requirements about the Americans with Disabilities Act, because I think that is also, when we talk about language access, we also have to think about people with disabilities in terms of how they're able to access city services. And we have a program, which is our Title II ADA program, whom ensures that our facilities and services are provided to people with disabilities. And so we have both OIRA providing support around language access, as well as we have the ADA Title II program, making sure that people with disabilities also have equal access to our programs and facilities. Mariko, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Mike. I did want to add one thing about the closed captioning law. I had mentioned earlier that we support 4 commissions, one of which is the Disability Commission. And it was through advocacy from that Disability Commission that this issue of the need for closed captioning in public spaces became, an important topic of discussion, and the advocacy from that commission led our city council to pass that legislation and to make that requirement. So I think it's a great example of what can happen by volunteering to serve on one of our city commissions. You can help advocate and actually make significant sustainable change that improves the lives of people in the city of Seattle. So I want to take this moment to make a pitch. All 4 of our commissions are currently in recruitment mode. So we are looking for volunteers who would like to make a difference and serve on any one of the commissions. Again, I'll mention we have the Women's Commission, specifically focusing on issues that affect women in particular. LGBTQ Commission, also focused on those communities. the Disability Commission, which I mentioned, and then also the Human Rights Commission. And there's lots of opportunities, and you can find that information on our website. Just search for the Seattle Office for Civil Rights. And I do notice that there is a question for us regarding cases that we have received on age discrimination. So the question is, can you give examples of age discrimination cases that SOCR has investigated, and what was the outcome? So I think it's a broad spectrum of cases that we receive, and I thought, Mike, it would be good to hear that, and also maybe just a little information about where we see most of our cases coming in from, and a little bit more about the case, how we address complaints.
Sure. So to answer the first question around what type of complaints that we receive that involves age as a protected class, we actually have not seen that many. I think the most type of cases that we see in the city of Seattle, and it's kind of probably very similar to other jurisdictions across the US, most of our discrimination complaints that we see are mostly disability related type complaints where someone is not getting an accommodation. We also see a lot around race discrimination, and also race discrimination could be in the form of harassment in that vein. And we also see some complaints around race and around sex discrimination as well. But in terms of, let's really speak more specifically to age, and I just reviewed a new case that someone had filed a discrimination based on age in a housing context. What we see is where, especially in the context of employment, where these cases do come up, where an individual is being denied a promotion or not being hired based on their age. In Seattle, and also on the federal level, age as a protected class is 40 years old or older, okay? So anyone above the age of 40 and older is a protected class. And so just want to make sure that that's clear around in employment setting. So we do see sometimes cases where these come up. What I think is really interesting when we look at trends, we tend to see age discrimination cases come up where there has been either an economic downturn, where there's a lot of people who lose their jobs or who have lost employment. That's where we see some of those age discrimination cases come up. So that kind of shows in the context of what we see. When it comes to age discrimination in public places and in housing, it typically is 18 years old or older. Okay, so there is no parameters of that 40 years or older like it is in employment. Mariko, did I answer those questions, or is there specifically?
Well, it's a little hard to answer the question about what was the outcome of those cases, but maybe you could give a little context to that.
Sure. Yep. Thank you. In terms of outcomes, I will just share with you kind of generalities because I don't have it broken down by case type or case protected classes. But generally, we get about 100 discrimination complaints filed each year. Okay, and we handle about, I would say, in of those 100, we usually are successful in doing settlements in about 20 to 30% of those cases. And about 10% of those cases, we administratively close it due to either we're not able to get the info, we're not able to reach out to the person who filed the complaint, or it's not jurisdictional or things like that. But and then about 5 to 10% of the cases that we see is where we do find there has been a violation of one of the laws that we enforce. And then the remaining is where we don't have evidence to show that there's been a violation. And so that is kind of the breakdown of the types of cases that we see. I can't really speak to the age specific because I don't think that we have enough age type cases that come through our office recently.
Thank you so much, Mike and Mariko, for a very, very detailed answer there. Interesting to know these things about, the city of Seattle, and specifically Age Friendly Seattle and Aging Disability Services. We try to practice what we preach and try to encourage older job seekers to apply for positions that are open. In our department, we currently have an out-of-class temporary position open on the Age-Friendly Seattle team, and we hope that folks with lived experience will consider applying. And thank you for mentioning the conventions, Mariko. I also want to give a plug for one of the groups that we support in Aging Disability Services, and it's the Mayor's Council on African American Elders, and currently has openings as well. And I'm hoping one of my moderators can put a link to that in the chat, and we'll add it in the description on YouTube. We are only a couple of minutes away from the end. We do have another question though, and it's a kind of a yes or no question. So hopefully we have enough time to talk and maybe go over a little bit if Mariko or Mike, you have time. So it's a question about accessibility for people with mobility issues. And the question is it better to report when people encounter places in Seattle that are not accessible? Is it better to report these to your office, or is it better to report it to a department that they may see as responsible? For example, Seattle Department of Transportation, ADA division. Well, who would like to take that?
I can answer that question, and Mariko, feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything. So if it's involving a city department that's not providing accessibility, the first thing is there's a couple ways to really address that. The first one is you could contact the Seattle Department of Transportation if there is an access issue in terms of it needs to have a curb cut and things like that. Because SDOT does have an ADA unit to address those particular complaints or those specific issues. And that's what we always encourage. Go to the place where that is most closely to that issue. The second place you can also contact is the ADA Title II program. That is housed out of the Finance and Administrative Services, and they will do what is called an informal review. They'll reach out to the city department. They'll also reach out to the person who needs the accommodation in that circumstance. And if those issues are not resolved, then to contact our office. Of course, I would always encourage anybody to contact our office, because our staff, especially our front desk staff, is extremely helpful to help folks navigate this sort of complex issues. And so always contact our number at 206-684-4500. Our front desk staff, Jackie, is super helpful in making sure that you get to the right place and to be able to help you resolve those issues. Mariko, do you have anything? Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. I put that information up on the screen again, and it's been entered in the live Q&A for folks to see. And we'll add it to the description on our YouTube channel. All right, well, I'd like to thank our guests. And before we go, there's just one more thing, is to say that we would like you to save the date. If there is another coffee hour in exactly a month from today. It's going to be on March 18th, also third Thursday of the month. We will continue our celebration of Women's History Month with celebrating these two women leaders from our own Human Services Department. They are Tanya Kim and Lan Pham, who will talk about our new division, which is called Supporting Safe Community. It's a brand new division in Human Services Department. It's just starting out this year. And also, I think I just stopped the slide there for a second, and hopefully it's back on now. Yeah, we hope that you will join us for one of these virtual events in 2021. But also, we hope that you will, the resources that you learned about today we really hope that these are going to be useful for you. And we're on every other week, so tell your friends, and we hope that you will stay safe out there. And until next time, we want to wish you only the best, and we will see you again on the virtual space, but hopefully soon in real spaces, in person spaces. Please take care, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.